Okay, what is your advice on ministering and raising a family while also maintaining a role as pastor's wife and fulfilling the needs of the ministry in the church? How do you keep that in balance?
Well, I know it's probably going to shock a lot of you women, but I don't believe I was called to be a pastor's wife. I don't. I believed I was called to love my husband, who was called to be a pastor. And whether I was married to John MacArthur or to another man, my responsibility as a woman, as a mother and a wife, doesn't change. And my first responsibility is my home and my family. And when that's in order and that's in place, and that's not to negate the fact that you need to be involved in a ministry. There's a lot of things you're going to be involved in that don't require you to be out of the home. But I think your first responsibility as a woman is that of being a helpmeet and taking care of your husband, caring for your children. I've always said this, when my kids were very young, I wasn't about to constantly leave them to minister to somebody else, because 10 years from now, they won't be in my life, those other people, but my children will. And they'll remember that I constantly was gone for somebody else. And nobody's more precious than they are to me. God placed them in my life, and they're my steward, and I think they come first. If I had to go someplace, I maybe would leave them with my parents or my husband's parents. But very seldom did we get a babysitter so that we could go out or that we could get time away. I didn't need that. I love being home with the kids. I mean, a night at home with our family was a treat, and I don't have any trouble at all saying no, especially when my kids were very young. When we first were at the church, I was in choir, I was teaching, I was a deaconess, I was involved in everything. And then when Melinda, my fourth child, came along, at Christmas time when I was in choir, I realized I was having to be gone so much, and I can't expect my husband to be home because he's got his own life and schedule. And so I said, I'm not going to pay a babysitter any longer to raise my children. I'm just not going to do it. So it was at that time that I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to stay home with my children, and the time will come when they're grown, which is now, and now I'm busier than ever. But that's okay. And my grandchildren, I have 12 grandchildren, which I love, and they're a big part of my life. I spend a lot of time with them and with my children, and I have them over for dinner a lot. They're a big part of our life. And there again, we want to be available to help people when there's a need for ministering, for teaching, or a time of sickness. Or my husband has never said no to anybody that calls and wants him to come pray or to visit in the hospital. And I'll go with him, But it's not to the expense or cost of our children or my grandchildren now. I see that as my mission in life now. I really do. My children, my grandchildren, my husband, and sometimes it's hard keeping the plate spinning, but it works.
Okay, this one is asking...
Let me tell you one more thing, Terry.
Yes.
I think as a result of us always putting our children first, it has, to this point in their life, every one of my children love their dad. They love the church. They're involved at church. None of them have any bitterness towards us. And they know when they were growing up, no one or no thing was more important than they were. So now when they can make the choice on their own, they're there. They're the first ones to be with their dad or to support something that's going on in the church. I mean, they love the church. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we neglect our kids when they're growing up and put everything in front of them, then when they become adults, they begin to be indifferent and bitter and feel like, say, hey, you know what? No thanks. Mm-hmm. And I know God is sovereign in terms of salvation and all these things, but I still feel that if you make your children feel loved and they're a part of your life, as they get older at this season of life, then you can reap the benefits of that.